Holy crap, I don't know who the hell we think we are when we do something like that.
What's up, fight fans? This is the Combat Connection, and I'm your host, Brett Cagle, joined today by Patrick Danna, and we are live on the Cageside Press social media platforms. And this is a massive fight week, Patrick. UFC 319 from Chicago, Illinois. Middleweight title is on the line between Dricus du Plessis and Khamzat Chimaev. It's going to be very interesting which way this one goes. Who are you favoring before we see these guys weigh in?
Ooh, it's a really tough one for me. I don't know if I've ever actually picked against either of these guys throughout their entire UFC careers, but as of right this second, I am currently favoring Khamzat Chimaev, but I've been flipping back and forth all week in the lead up to this fight, so I don't know if that will be my final prediction.
Yeah, same here, man. I'm leaning towards Khamzat, but I want to see him on the scale, right? That's really been the story of his career. He's going to win or lose fights on that scale, and I think that the cardio of him in this fight is a really big factor. If this gets out of the second round, I believe that that's a significant advantage for Dricus du Plessis, who's been 5 rounds in these situations against Sean Strickland and former champions in the past. Now, they do have a former or opponent in common in Robert Whittaker. How much stock do you put into the two matchups there? Both of them getting finishes over Rob by submission. What do you think about that?
Well, it's interesting because I think that both of them did show holes in Whittaker's grappling defense that we hadn't really seen in a long time before their fights against him. So I think they both showed that they're very, very high level grapplers in their own right. So I think it is going to be interesting to see if Khamzat does get Dricus down. Dricus' work off his back. We know he's a good grappler off his top, but what is he off his back? That's really what I'm going to be interested in seeing. And then for Khamzat, we have seen in the past issues with him on top. Like if he doesn't get a quick finish on top sometimes, he kind of just grinds out in guard and can't really pass too well. Will Dricus let him pass? Like I'm interested in seeing some of those situations in this fight, and I think those little situations might be what might determine the fight in the end.
Yeah, I think so too. Some of those scrambles, Khamzat Chimaev can grab people's necks. We've seen him submit Kevin Holland and people in the past. So he's very good in those transitional grappling. But in this one, fight fans out there that are betting on this, Dricus du Plessis comes into this matchup 23-2. While obviously Khamzat Chimaev is undefeated at 14-0. Khamzat Chimaev is a minus 250 betting favorite as the challenger this weekend. Dricus du Plessis has been an underdog against Israel Adesanya. He's been an underdog against Sean Strickland twice. Here's Eddie Law joining us. We're breaking down the main event here, Eddie, talking a little bit about Khamzat and Dricus du Plessis. You were there in Chicago at Media Day. What's your gauge on this matchup right now?
So it's really wild. I changed my mind like 8 times on this fight. Okay. Going up at Media Day today was so Khamzat, right? We all knew when he was coming in, he's going to give us fuck all as far as quotes go. He's going to say 2 or 3 words maybe and repeat them over and over again. Literally just raspy ass shit the whole time, right? Cool. He does not look worried at fucking all. Like, to him, the outcome's already settled. It's so weird. Dricus came in, very last guy. Of course, thanks, Dricus, for making us wait an hour and a half for your ass to come in. Appreciate you. I'm kidding. That's cool. But I'm not kidding about the time, by the way. He made us wait forever. But he comes in, he's the last guy to come in. And as usual, Dricus being Dricus. I mean, one of the questions they asked him was what's your favorite meme, right? And he goes, world champion. I'm like, all right, dude, chill. Anyway, but he's fully convinced. He goes, hey, man, y'all think Khamzat's going to kill me? Okay. I'm going to show you. I'm going to win this fight, and you guys are going to be like, how did he do it again? I can't fucking tell you what's going on. I'm still leaning Khamzat-ish, but it's up and down. It's in the air for me.
What do you think about the weight cut, Eddie? I think we're all three kind of leaning towards Khamzat, but we kind of have to see what he looks like on the scales officially. When you saw him there at Media Day, did he look filled out? Did it look like he's going to have any problem making that weight?
He looked tired. I'll tell you that much. He looked tired. So that weight cut's going to suck no matter what. But with him, for some reason, and keep in mind, guys, he's the main event, right? So he has a lot of extra time to recover. He's going to be fine no matter what he looks like on the scale. It's just what he has in the gas tank in terms of cardio, which is the biggest question this whole week is, Can he last with Dricus? If he doesn't finish him in the first or second round, can he last all 5 rounds? That is the question mark when it comes to Shmuley. But as far as like when we saw him, he looks tired, but he always looks tired when he's coming, like the day before week. So it's not anything outside of the normal.
Yeah. Were you surprised to see that Khamzat Chimaev is close to a 3-1 betting favorite?
Very much so. I feel like are we not done with this whole betting against DDP thing?
I know that's what I was just telling Pat. I was like, he was an underdog against Izzy, he was an underdog against Strickland twice. This guy's been disrespected.
I made some nice money when he was an underdog against Whitaker. That was a fun one.
Hey, I'll tell you what right now, all the bettors are dumping truckloads of money on the drinker side right now. I think they're gonna lose, man. I honestly am leaning Khamzat. It's hard to fathom Dricus being able to stop this man for 2 rounds. Honestly.
Sorry, Brett, just to cut you off real quick. I just want to say, I think Khamzat by decision is such an underrated outcome here. I mean, we saw it with Shavkat in his last fight against Ian Gary, a guy that finished everyone, finally going the distance, and he did hold up for enough rounds, struggled late, but survived and got the decision win. I think it could be a similar kind of, not fight, but similar outcome in terms of that, and I think that Khamzat by decision is actually a potential real possibility for this fight.
Yeah, I think that you could get some good value there. And Roberto Soljic is the only guy who has defeated Dricus du Plessis by finish, correct? So, yeah, I think that that's a plausible outcome. One question that I have for both of you guys, if this fight doesn't hit the ground, say Dricus stops the takedown and it's dictated on the feet, who are you favoring in the striking?
Eddie, you can go first.
So I'm going to go with Khabib Nurmagomedov said. Khabib said if he keeps the fight standing, Khamzat's boxing and striking is much better than Dricus. That's what Khabib said. And I lean that way as well. I mean, we've seen a lot of finishes by Khamzat that were knockouts, right? We haven't seen that many from Dricus. Dricus usually just has to take you down, beat you up, tire you up, and then he might TKO you. But as far as like one-hitter quitters, like we saw against GM3, we haven't seen that from Dricus. We've seen plenty of that from Khamzat.
Yeah, so I think I'd probably say, I think Dricus' weird style, the pressure boxing, just the running forward with no care. I think it is going to cause some problems for Khamzat, but overall, I do think Khamzat is the more technical boxer as well, more technical striker. I do think, though, the DDP we saw against Strickland, he used a lot of kicks in that fight. If he uses a lot of kicks on the feet against Khamzat, I'm interested to see how Khamzat deals with that, because Khamzat's never really dealt with a kick-heavy attack in the striking like that. So if Dricus comes out and kind of tries to just say, no, I'm going to stay away from you and kick you, I want to see if Khamzat reacts by shooting or if he reacts by trying to get in the pocket and really, really swing with DDP.
Yeah, I think that the striking exchanges are going to be the most interesting part of this matchup, guys. But when we talk about Dricus du Plessis, especially in his last matchup, Eddie, you're going to be there at the press conference tomorrow. He's gotten in the head of his last two opponents, actually bringing tears to their eyes in the press conference with Izzy and Sean Strickland. Do you see anything like that happening? Khamzat seems to be a really closeted guy to where he doesn't show his emotions or anything like that. Was Dricus du Plessis laying the seed of any potential back and forth smack talk there, or what? How do you see this press conference going? Do you think he can get under the skin of Khamzat like these other guys?
Yeah, the big talk at media day today between those two guys, they ran into each other at the fighter hotel already, and they were very respectful to each other. We asked them both about it. Hey, you ran into your opponent. How was it? And Khamzat was like, he was cool. We were respectful. I have no problem with him. We're just competing. Dricus, same answer. He goes, hey, as long as he keeps it respectful, I'm gonna keep it respectful. And then we asked him, it's like, hey, are you expecting any kind of trash talk tomorrow? He goes, no, but we'll see what happens. But I'm gonna keep it respectful if he keeps it respectful.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, that it is interesting to see that Dricus is ready to talk some trash, but he's not going to actually bring it out unless it gets to that point. That's interesting.
Yeah. Should be an interesting press conference tomorrow in Chicago. Guys, we're going to have to get into the prediction. Eddie, you're there covering it, so obviously you probably won't have to make a prediction here. But I'm going to go with Khamzat Chimaev, barring something on the scale, some type of thing we see where maybe he misses weight, then has to readjust and make weight on the second attempt. I'm going to go with him, and I like what Pat said by decision. I think that Dricus du Plessis is one of the toughest guys that we have. He has great cardio. He's willing to sit there and exchange on the feet. He also can defend himself well on the ground. But I think that Khamzat Chimaev is going to get out to an early lead in this one, especially in those first two rounds. I think he's going to be grapple heavy, maybe get out to a 2-0 lead in this contest, and Dricus has to work his way back in the final 3 rounds, kind of like he did against Sean Strickland in that first fight. What do you think about this matchup, Patrick, and which way are you going?
Yeah, I think I am gonna lean Chimaev just for my official pick for this. Maybe I'll be on Dricus by the time the fight rolls around, but I think I keep going back to Chimaev at the end of the day. I think that's the guy that he's just has the more technical striking. He is the more dominant wrestler. Maybe the cardio isn't as there, but maybe it is. We really don't know in a 5 round fight. We have seen him in 3 and he tires out, but maybe he'll get his energy back over 5 rounds if it gets to that point. So I'm really interested to see it. I think I am leaning a Chimaev sub in round 2. I think he probably will get Dricus out of there. And I mean, Dricus was put in some bad spots by Derek Brunson. If Derek Brunson can put you in some of those spots, I feel like Chimaev can, and he might be able to just make him uncomfortable enough that he does get him out of there. But I mean, like I said, don't sleep on a Hamzat decision, because I think a decision is very possible with the way Brett explained it before.
What do you think, Eddie? Obviously, you're not going to go one way or the other, but how do you see this fight kind of playing out on fight night?
I mean, who's going to impose their will, right? Is Hamza going to be like we all know? Hamza finishes. If he's going to win this fight, outside of the possibility that he might go decision, you never know. Pat might be right. If you guys watched a Contender Series yesterday, his opponent or his partner, his training partner, who got a contract, by the way, bad motherfucker, goes right to the belly game. That was dope. He said, "Hey, Hamza's in shape. He's ready to go. He's got cardio, some of the stuff." I'm like, I'll take your word for it, dude. See what happens. So could it go decision? Sure. I think conventional wisdom says Hamza by finish, Dricus by decision at the very end. But look, I'll tell you right now, if we touch those rounds 4 and 5, I'm gonna be real interested to see what Hamza has left in the tank.
Yeah, so fight fans, you can catch this one on Saturday night from the United Center. Hamzat Chimaev, Dricus du Plessis in the main event. Moving on to the co-main event, guys, we've got Lerone Murphy, undefeated striker from England, taking on Aaron Pico, who will be debuting in the promotion, coming over from Bellator in the PFL. Aaron Pico is one of the most talented guys in the world. His record is not necessarily reflective of how talented he is. He's 13-4. He started his career early at 18 years old. Ran into Zach Freeman in his first fight, Henry Corrales, Adam Boric. He's had a couple step-ups along the way that have set him back from getting to a title earlier in his career. But this really seems like the moment for him. His time to put his best foot forward and go towards a title opportunity in the biggest promotion that he's ever fought in. This guy was on the Junior Olympic team before he went pro at 18, so he's a decorated athlete who takes care of himself and is looking to go towards success. But he's taking on a guy in Lerone Murphy who is as slick as they come, man. On the feet, he's very technical. We just saw him against Josh Emmett, who's a wrestler with power punching, a very similar style to Pico, maybe not quite the athlete that he is, but wrestler, strong overhand right, big knockout power. How do you see this one going, Pat? I kind of see this as not necessarily striker versus grappler, because Pico does have that one punch knockout power, but I do, to a lesser degree, kind of see grappler striker in this one.
Yeah, and that's mostly the way it should be seen. I feel like if Pico were to win, it probably would be through implementing his grappling. I don't think he's going to one punch Lerone. I mean, we saw Lerone against Josh Emmett, and he really didn't get close to getting one punched. So I think Pico's wrestling is going to be interesting for for Lerone, because he's never really dealt with a wrestler on that level. Never dealt with a guy that's just going to kind of really pressure him like that with wrestling and striking. But I don't know if Pico's ever fought a guy like Lerone who can sit on the back foot and snipe him like that. It's one of these interesting matchups where I think it's going to be a really slow start, because I don't think either of them are going to be used to fighting that kind of guy. And I feel like once it actually gets going, I think Pico's pressure honestly will win him the fight. I hate the Bellator PFL fighters coming over and losing thing, and I don't want to keep picking them if they're going to keep losing in their debuts. But I do think Pico matches up pretty well against Lerone, and I feel like Lerone, he has good volume, but I don't know if he's high volume enough to neutralize what Pico might do on top in the moments that he gets there, if he does end up getting there. So I think I do like Aaron Pico by decision, but nothing would shock me in this one. I could see Lerone just sitting on the back foot and giving him a lot of trouble for 15 minutes as well.
Eddie, you were there with these guys on Media Day. What did you take from Aaron Pico? Do you think there's going to be some UFC jitters like we saw with maybe Patchy Mix? Or is this a guy who can kind of keep those emotions under his belt going into fight night?
Well, he's supposed to have a fight earlier on, right? And so it's not the first time he's been booked for a bout. So he's already been through that ringer of the mental aspect of that game. To me, that's 90% of the battle, the mental aspect. Everyone makes this whole thing when you walk out there in the lights and the crowd. No, dude, he's seen plenty of crowds. You guys, Pat said junior Olympic wrestler. Um, he's Bellator. He's been Bellator a bunch of times. He's fought in arena. Been in arenas before Bellator a bunch of times. He's not going to be shocked by the lights. Not to mention, he's got this weird like energy about him where he just doesn't really. It seems like he doesn't grasp that there's like people around him. It's really weird, right? And so I don't think he's going to be bothered by the jitters that much at all. I think this is a huge fight for both men because they're both under the impression that the winner's going to get a title shot against Volkanovski. And Volkanovski and Pico already talking their shit online. We've seen that already. Pico said that he can knock out Volkanovski. Volkanovski went on that podcast or show, whatever it was, and said, come get Frosty, boy, see what's up. And then we asked Pico about it. And Pico goes like, look, man, I respect him. He's one of the greatest to ever do 145. He's a tough fight. But all I have to do is land a left or a right hook and it's over. I'll knock him out. So it's very interesting to see the dynamic between these two. Laurel Murphy a little more reserved, but he's taking a chance on this. He told me, I asked him, I said, you said earlier in that interview, I think a month or so ago, he said that his lack of outspokenness, his lack of trash talk and being out there promoting himself has it has kind of held him back. And I asked him, like, has that pulled opportunities from him? And he goes, absolutely. It has. And so he's taken this on the opportunity of, I think, jumping on a guy coming over from Bellator. We've already seen two Bellator guys that were supposed to be world beaters look like toddlers in there, right? With all due respect. And I think he's trying to jump on that and trying to see if he can catch Pico and slip it. Either way, no matter what happens, Murphy doesn't lose anything here. He stepped up on short notice and in a big fight on a massive card in front of the world. It's to me, it's a win-win. But man, Aaron Pico looks like, man possessed to me. He just looked laser fucking focused. He was not entertaining any bullshit today. So, yeah, man, it's a super interesting fight. Honestly, I'm more excited for that one than the main event. They're both incredible fights. I can't wait to see both. But that co-main event has me super interested.
Yeah, me too. Both of these guys are young, athletic contenders that really are one of the most talented. Both of them are very talented in their own right at very different aspects. But when we look at this from a betting perspective, Aaron Pico in his debut will be minus 185, and you'll get the undefeated Lerone Murphy at a nice price tag at plus 155 there. I do have Lerone Murphy in this contest. A little bit of like what Pat alluded to. Pico is going to come out and be the aggressor here, right? We're all expecting him to put his first foot forward, make Lerone Murphy fight off the back foot against the fence. But I think Lerone Murphy is so slick, so athletic, so good and defensively sound that he's going to be able to move out of the way of those big shots from Aaron Pico, fight against the fence like he did Josh Emmett, use elbows and knees up close to kind of keep himself off the ground. And I think he's going to be able to get a decision victory himself. Now, you alluded to the volume, Pat. Lerone Murphy really isn't, like you said, a volume puncher. He's more of a counter striker, right? And he picks you apart at range as you come in. I think that's going to be a big factor because of Aaron Pico's pressure. I think Aaron Pico's going to get caught a couple times coming in, and then he might be more hesitant and go to the grappling in rounds 2 and 3. But I really think this is going to be a highly competitive matchup. Do I think it's going to be fight of the night? Not necessarily. But of all these on the card, this was one of the hardest to predict, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I definitely
that fight of the
agree
night
with that.
slot to me. Fight of the night slot to me, I think is going to be Jeff Neal, Carlos Prates. Honestly, that fight's going to be
that's going to be a war. Who do you got in this one, Pat?
Pico, by decision.
Pico decision?
Yeah, Pico decision.
All right, fight fans, we're moving on to the card here, or to the fight here that Eddie was talking about. Jeff Neal versus Carlos Prates. Jeff Neal is 3-2 in his last 5. Losses to Shavkat Rakhmonov and Ian Gary. Carlos Prates just lost last time out to Ian Gary himself, looking to rebound here. Guys, I don't think we're going to see much grappling in this one. Both of these guys are strikers. Jeff Neal's as tough as they come. And Carlos Prates is one of the most dynamic guys to bust on the scene here recently. So a lengthy southpaw, has devastating knockout power, good kicks as well, dynamic finishes. How do you guys see this one going? I think it's going to be all action.
Yeah, all action for sure. I mean, I think Carlos Prates is obviously one of the most exciting upcoming welterweights. Everyone agrees. Even after the loss to Ian Gary, I think his stock maybe didn't rise that much, but I don't think it went down at all. I don't think his stock dropped after that fight. And Jeff Neal's a vet. We've seen Jeff Neal against the best of the best, against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, against Shavkat, against Ian Gary, and he's always given a fight. He's always in there brawling until the end, and I think this is a perfect matchup, right? I think this is a matchup where both guys are going to want to strike with each other. Both guys are going to come forward. I think they're going to want to throw these hands, and I mean, I really don't see a way this is a boring fight. I really like thinking about it. I just feel like they're both going to be landing on each other consistently enough to where this is going to be a banger. And I love just the sniperness of Carlos Prates, but also Neal can kind of be a counter striker at times, but I don't think it's going to matter because Prates likes to be on the front foot. So Prates will be on that front foot and he'll be trying to bait those counters out of Jeff Neal. And if Neal doesn't give them to him, then he's just going to take them. We've seen it happen before. So I love the matchup, and I honestly think I do lean Carlos Prates just because he is younger. His striking is a bit more dynamic, and I love the fighting nerds. I feel like they really do game plan for opponents perfectly. I feel like they have such good fight IQ, and I feel like they know what they need to do in a lot of these fights. So I think I like Carlos Prates to bounce back here. Maybe not. Maybe I do like him to finish Jeff Neal, honestly. Give me Prates to finish Jeff Neal late, round 2.
What did you see from these two guys at Media Day, Eddie, and what are your thoughts on this matchup?
All right, take away from Carlos Prates. He said that he's now he's going to be more focused on winning and not just the bonus. Apparently, all he's ever wanted was bonuses up to this point, and now that he's tasted defeat, now he wants to focus on winning. When I asked him, I said, "Hey, look, man, they saw you lose to Ian. You need to come back and make a statement to the division. Like, hey, I'm still here. I'm still him." And he said, "Oh, absolutely, I have to come back and do that. You're not going to do that by playing it safe, okay? Because the winner of this fight is going to have to be willing to put themselves in fucking danger." Right? You just said it. Counter striker against aggressor. Right? One of them is going to drop. It's going to happen. Someone's going to get hurt in this one. If you play it safe in this game, in this fight, you prepare to get booed out of the fucking arena. That's not, you are not going to, no one's going to be happy with you. But if you want to win, and if you're Carlos, you want to show people, hey, I'm still him, and you're Jeff Neal, like, hey, I deserve my respect, you're going to have to put yourself in danger, and you're going to have to take a shot. Right? And who's going to be able to land that nuclear shot? We'll find out, man. I think this is going to happen. We're going to get fight of the night. It's going to be a banger for as long as it goes. And I think someone's going to sleep, man. It's a hard one to pick, but I mean, to me, but it's going to be dope. But and I asked Jeff Neal, just on the side note, I asked Jeff Neal, I said, hey, Sean Brady picked you to win by knockout. What do you think of that? He goes, yeah, it's cool, but I'm still going to kick his ass. I'm like, God damn, he just gave me compliment. So that was cool. But yeah, overall, man, I can't wait for that fight. It's going to be dope.
Hey, Eddie, am I wrong, or did I hear that Jeff Neal was still picking up shifts from time to time, waiting tables and stuff like that, too? Did I see that in an interview?
Sorry, I cut out for a second.
I think I saw in an interview last week that Jeff Neal was still waiting tables from time to time. Is that something that you saw as well online, or?
I didn't see it, but I damn sure would have loved to ask him. Now I'm going to ask him on Saturday if I can find it. Maybe he wins.
Yeah, I was just saying historically, if you have a guy who's working a second job, and then, that might not be necessarily the best use of your time, but right. Jeff Neal is as tough as they come, and he knows what he's getting into in this matchup, right? It's not like he's got to be in the gym drilling takedown defense and submission escapes against Carlos Prates. He's going in there and getting into a war, which he's very accustomed to doing. I am going to go with Carlos Prates in this one by knockout in the second round. I think the first round is going to be, like we're talking about, all action. These guys are both going to try and go in there and implement their will. But I think that Carlos is probably going to hurt him somewhere midway through that round. He's going to eventually dictate what Jeff does and hit him with a left hand. And then in the second round, I think he gets him out of there and finishes the fight. But I think this is going to be fantastic. The official betting odds in this one are the same as the last fight, coincidentally enough. -250 for Carlos Prates, but Jeff Neal, the underdog, is a little bit higher of a value than Lerone Murphy at +200. What do you think about those betting odds, Pat?
I'd say it's about accurate for where they're both at this point in their career. I mean, Jeff Neal, he's not old, but he's been through some fights at this point. He's been through some wars, His last 3 wins are RDA, Vicente Luque, and Ponzinibbio, all older guys that are past it. And his last 4 losses are 2 guys that are still in there, they're still doing the thing. So I think Carlos Prates will still be in there doing the thing. So I do want to say that just the trajectory of both their careers does make the line make a lot of sense to me.
Perlez in the comments says Brett Rogers was a tire salesman when he fought Fedor. I do not believe that fight went too well for Mr. Brett Rogers. He was actually knocked out in the city of Chicago, coincidentally enough, but in that fight. But moving on down the card here, we have another matchup, this time between middleweight ranked contenders Jared Cannonier, former title challenger, taking on Michael Venom Page, MVP, standout from Bellator, title challenger over there, now came over to the UFC where he is 3-1, just picked up a win over Kevin Holland, has looked good against Shara Magomedov as well. Now, what do you guys think about this one? I see it as Jared Cannonier is going to be the aggressor. We're going to have Michael Venom Page fight off the back foot here, do his normal kickboxing at range. I don't see how Jared Cannonier is going to be able to get inside and find Michael Venom Page. I think Michael Venom Page is just so fast, and Cannonier now at the upper 30s and near the end of his career. He looked good against Gregory Rodriguez, who almost killed a man last time out, but putting that aside, it's a different matchup. RoboCop's also an aging fighter in his 30s. He's not near as fast as Michael Venom Page is on the feet. So I think it's completely different. Now, I like Venom Page in this one by points. The odds in it are -190 for MVP, +160 for Jared Cannonier. Who do you have in this one, Pat?
It's a pretty, I want to say cut and dry. I don't know if it is going to be necessarily as cut and dry, but if Cannonier shot more takedowns, I'd be more inclined to believe that he had more of a chance in this fight. But just from what we've seen from MVP in the UFC, I mean, it's been great. Even in his one loss against Ian Gary, I thought he looked incredible. And his issue was the grappling defense against a guy who I think we all agree is probably a top 5 welterweight, you know? So at this point, it's like, all right, I don't think Cannonier is at that point. I don't think he's a top middleweight at this point. We got two Eddie Laws in here. Look at this.
Anyway, my internet's all fucked up, so I'm going to go, boys. But okay. Just real quick on this fight, we're talking about Jared Cannonier. My thing about this fight, it's a great fight. Don't get me wrong. I think this fight's more insurance for if somebody misses weight in the main event, because I don't mind seeing Jared Cannonier in the title fight, and I don't mind seeing MVP in the title fight. So there's that. And then what's the last fight on the card? Or the first fight in the main card?
Asakura, Elliott.
Elliott and Asakura.
Oh, Elliott made me laugh. Two things about Elliott. Elliott said that someone pointed out that Elliott's still ranked number 11, and he goes, "I haven't fought 600 days. What the hell are these guys doing? Like the rest of the division? Like what the fuck are you guys doing? Like I'm still ranked. You tripping?" And then he said, he said I should thank Kai Sakura. The only reason I'm on the main card is on pay-per-view is because of Kai, not because of me. I was like, God damn, that is a self-aware man. That is a very, very self-aware man. But anyway, boys,
Tim Elliott's a good dude.
Enjoy the show. Hit you guys up later on, and we'll have plenty from the press conference tomorrow.
Yep. Thanks for joining us, Eddie. And you can catch all the coverage from Eddie Law on our Cageside Press YouTube channel. I'll see you this week, Eddie.
Later, boys.
Have a great week.
Thanks.
All right, fight fans, we're sitting here talking about Jared Cannonier versus Michael Venom Page, and that price tag -190 to +160. If I'm going to take someone in this, I'm going to take Michael Venom Page by points. I think Jared Cannonier is very tough. He has been finished in the past. Imavov was able to take him out of there a couple fights ago, but that was a controversial stoppage. Jason Herzog, I believe, was the referee in that matchup. Stopped it a little early, some people say, but I like Nasruddin Imavov as a prospect. I think he's one of the best in the world. I'm going to go with Michael Venom Page in this one by decision. Is that kind of what you got too, Pat?
Yeah, I got the same here. I mean, if Cannonier wrestled more, I would be more inclined to pick him, but I just don't think I don't think he's going to wrestle that much. The only fight he has more than one takedown, basically his entire UFC career, was Marvin Vettori, and that fight was just fought in a very odd way. You know, he kind of was just throwing Vettori around after the first round. So I don't expect the same to happen here with MVP. MVP is a legit striker. I think he'll probably be able to dictate the pace against Cannonier and just keep him away.
All right, fight fans, now your biggest favorite on the main card will be the opening matchup between Kai Asakura, the former Ryzen champion who came over in his debut, lost to Alexandre Pantoja in that flyweight championship contest. He will be making his second fight in the UFC against veteran Tim Elliott, former title challenger and Ultimate Fighter winner. Elliott is as tough as they come. He's somebody who's been around the sport for, as long as I've been watching it, 10, 15 years. He sat there and fought Demetrius Johnson. He's fought the best fighters that this division has seen in the past. But Kai Asakura, to me, is just too athletic. He's got too much going for him right now, and he's got a point to prove. If he goes and loses to Tim Elliott, in my opinion, he's probably not on the roster come next week, or he's not booked again, because you can't go and lose in the main event and get finished like you did in that title opportunity, then come in against a guy like Tim Elliott, who you're expected to beat and look good against, and drop one there. I think that Kai Asakura has got to finish this fight. I think that he's going to win by knockout. I don't know if he steamrolls Tim in the first round. Like I mentioned, Tim's very tough, but I got Kai here, probably second round TKO.
Give me the odds real quick for this one.
This is minus 330 Kai Asakura, plus 260 Tim Elliott.
Like, I don't get it. I feel like Kai should be a big favorite here, right?
He should be minus 700.
He should be a big favorite here. I mean, Tim Elliott, we haven't seen him, like he said himself, since December of 2023. The last 2 wins he has are Sumaderji and Victor Altamirano. Those guys, from what we know, are nowhere close to the level of Kai Asakura, right? He did have the loss to Mokaev in the middle. His losses have never been bad. That's the thing with Tim Elliott. All of his losses, you go back and look, they're really all to some pretty solid competition in the UFC. Like, really, they're all to good competition. But like I said, the odds just don't seem right for this fight. It seems like Asakura should be a massive favorite. And like you said, I think he needs to get a big finish over Tim Elliott to stamp his way back into flyweight and really show, yeah, I lost my debut, I fought the champion, but I'm still a very good fighter. And also considering that the guy is a former bantamweight and he knocked out Juan Archuleta at bantamweight, if you can't finish Tim Elliott off an almost 2-year layoff at flyweight, I don't know. It'd really
be alarming if he couldn't do it, right?
Very alarming. I would be very worried about his future with the UFC, like you had said. Even if he wins the decision, if it's impressive, that's fine. But if he loses, especially, I don't know what his future with the UFC looks like, if there is one.
Now, if I was going to play devil's advocate, I would say, and say I'm a Tim Elliott fan or whatever, I would say maybe Kai Asakura is not the same fighter at 125 that he is at 135. Do you think there's any validity to maybe that argument?
I don't think so. I think Kai looked really good against Pantoja in the first round and a half before he got finished. You saw the difference on the feet. He was so much quicker. He landed that knee that probably would have knocked out guys like Tim Elliott. Like that's my problem with it. Like Tim Elliott's a great fighter, don't get me wrong, but Asakura is a different level of athletic, a different level of speed, and he's the bigger guy. He's a former bantamweight, so I think Asakura should roll here, honestly. I want to pick him by first round KO. I don't think this is going to be too much of a competitive fight despite Tim Elliott's resume, just because of where he's at this point in his career. But with that said, Tim Elliott's always been the underdog to pull something out, right? So if he does do it, this would be the time. That's all. That's how I'll end it, I guess.
Yeah, Tim Elliott is a prospect killer, especially earlier in his career. And if he does get it done this weekend, it would be a statement victory for the veteran in his UFC career, maybe a send-off for him from the UFC. But we do have another matchup here in the lightweight division. This is going to be the prelim main event. And these guys are two entertaining fighters. You never see a Diego Ferreira matchup or a Bobby King Green matchup, and you leave the television screen, right? So, but it's been a while since we saw Bobby, right? And the last time that we saw Bobby against Jalen Turner, pardon me, that didn't end too great for King Green there. And that was one of the latest stoppages. I believe Kerry Hatley was the official that night. That was bad, right? So, moving back into this one, I'm going to have to take Carlos Ferreira in this. He beat Mateus Rebecki a couple fights ago. He has looked good. I think he just has more in the gas tank still than what King Green does. And after an extended layoff, what version of Bobby Green are we even going to see? Are we going to see the version that even stepped in there against Jalen Turner that night? And before that, he was getting finished by Paddy Pimblett. Or actually, after that. Was his first. Yeah, right after that. He got choked out by Paddy Pimblett and finished by Jalen Turner back to back. I think that,
No. It was Turner, then he beat Jim Miller, then he got finished by Paddy Pimblett and Rufy. Don't forget the spinning kick. Yes. Yep. So Bobby Green is 1-3 in his last 4 fights, with his only win coming over Jim Miller. He's been on a rough streak lately.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with Carlos Diego Ferreira in this one. I think he's going to keep it standing, and I think he's going to knock out Bobby Green with a left-hand shot. And if it does go to the ground, I think that Ferreira has a lot better submission chops than Bobby Green does, who just got submitted by Paddy Pimblett as well. Is there any path to victory for Bobby Green in this one?
If his chin holds up, I think if his chin does hold up, which it hasn't, so I don't think it will. But if his chin does hold up, I think that there is a real path here for him to just outvolume Carlos Diego Ferreira, just outpace him on the feet, just kind of keep stuffing him with punches and just outwork him on the feet. The problem is that hasn't happened to Carlos Diego Ferreira in a very long time. A very long time. The last three guys to beat him: Grant Dawson, Gamrot, and Gillespie. What do all those guys have in common? They're all very, very heavy grapplers. Very heavy grapplers. They all beat him on the ground as well. And this fight just reminds me too much of the fight against Michael Johnson, a southpaw, quick hands boxer who throws high volume, is constantly in your face. I mean, it just reminds me so much. And right? And at this point in their careers, I think Michael Johnson and Bobby Green is the fight to make, honestly. I think that's a close, very competitive, good fight. I think Diego Ferreira, we haven't seen the fall off from him that we've kind of seen from Bobby Green lately. So I do, yeah. I mean, if Diego Ferreira did that to Michael Johnson, I do think he will do the same thing to Bobby Green, in my opinion.
Yeah, now one of the things before we get into the betting odds, I think you'll be a little surprised here when I tell you the number. But like you mentioned with Diego Ferreira in some of those matchups where, like Grant Dawson, he gets controlled on the ground. I think at times he gets content with going for submissions off his back where necessarily he gives up rounds while looking for some of those submissions that might be 30%, 40% success rate. But I don't think that's going to be a problem in this contest. And if he does get the fight to the ground, I think there's going to be a significant advantage on the ground where he has 7 submission victories in his career.
Yeah, I think Diego has the advantages on the ground as well.
What were you saying?
I think Diego has the advantage on the ground as well. I completely skipped over that part, but I agree.
Mm-hmm. Now, the betting odds on this one, Pat, minus 150 Diego Ferreira, plus 125 for Bobby Green. I was expecting this to be about minus 225 for Ferreira. I think that, like we said, he's just got more gas left in the tank than King Green, who's been finished, like Pat mentioned, countless times here recently. So he's been finished so many times I couldn't even remember how many times he's been finished.
I mean, and you saying minus 225, that's about where I'd line it as well, in between like minus 200, minus 250, like in that range. Like it's about where I'd line it as well. So I do think the odds are a little bit close for this one. But like I said, there is a world where Bobby Green just kind of keeps the jab in his face and does it for 15 minutes. But we saw a guy that could have done that to Diego Ferreira get knocked out really bad. And Michael Johnson has, I think, maybe more left in the tank than Bobby Green at this point.
He just beat Daniel Zellhuber. Would you handicap Bobby Green to beat Daniel Zellhuber?
I don't know. At this point, But Johnson did it as a massive underdog. Massive, So exactly.
Yeah, so we're both on the same direction here. I'm actually going to go with Ferreira by submission in round 2. I think King Green, like Pat mentioned, might try and get a jab going in round 1, which will bide him enough time to get into that second round. Eventually, I think that Ferreira will decide that, well, maybe the juice isn't necessarily worth the squeeze on the feet. Let's take this thing down, see where he's at grappling wise. And I think there'll be a big advantage there once the fight hits the ground. So I'm going to go sub in the second round by Ferreira.
Yeah, no, I like Ferreira here too. I mean, he has had knockout wins in his last 2 wins. So I think I'm going to go knockout here just because it seems like that's what he's been favoring more lately. But like you said, he has the submission background. He has more submission wins than knockout wins in his career. It wouldn't shock me if he went back to the well with his grappling for this fight and just took the path of maybe least resistance against a guy like Bobby Green to get the win.
Mm-hmm. All right, fight fans, that is your prelim main event. We've got a couple more matchups here that we're going to break down before we get to the massive news that broke over the weekend from the UFC signing the TV rights deal with CBS. $7.7 billion over 7 years, a historic landmark purchase by CBS and I believe the Skydance team over there that's affiliated with them now. So moving on down the card here, we do have a middleweight matchup between 2 guys who, Pat, in my opinion, this is as striker versus grappler as it comes. Michael Owiszczyk, big left hand, southpaw. He bites down on the mouthpiece. He's very tough. He's got good cardio as well. But he's going to be fighting a guy in Gerald Meerschaert who seems to be as durable as anybody in this division. You hurt Gerald, and then he comes back in the third round, second round, and submits you. He actually gave one of the toughest fights to Reinier de Ridder that we've seen in de Ridder's short stint here in the UFC so far. What do you think about Gerald Meerschaert right now? Do you think that right now – here's the thing. Michael Owiszczyk, that loss to Kevin Holland was bad, right? He beat Kevin Holland on the feet, knocked him down, and then just basically ran into a submission on the ground. Is that something that maybe when I'm handicapping this or predicting this, I see happening? That I definitely see him hurting Mearshart on the feet, but once it goes to the ground, is he going to try like Kevin Holland to finish the fight there and get caught in some type of arm bar or triangle? I don't know. I think that's really the story of this contest, what happens when it does hit the ground, because in my opinion, Michael Oleksiejczyk's going to have a big advantage on the feet.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. One thing I will say that makes me lean towards Oleksiejczyk. He has the power to drop Mearshart. I think we can all agree. He has the power to KO Mearshart. I think we can all agree. He has a lot of first round wins. Almost all of his knockouts, I think, are in round one, right? So when you look at that and you look at a guy like Mearshart, almost all of his wins are in rounds 2 and 3. All of his finishes are in rounds 2 and 3, because once the guy starts to wear themselves down, that's when he starts to really submit you. So Mearshart could definitely do what he did to Kevin Holland. I mean, my bad. Mearshart could definitely do what Kevin Holland did to Oleksiejczyk to him as well. But Mearshart hasn't really shown that he does get first round submissions a lot lately. He can get dropped and come back and get the win, but has he ever really gotten dropped and then immediately gotten a sub off his back like recently? I don't know. I don't remember. But
he's one of these fighters like Darren Elkins that like weathers the storm and then you
constantly.
Yeah.
Constantly. But when he faces big power punchers, I mean, I know, it's Hamzat's a bit different, but when he faced Hamzat, when he faced Joe Pyfer, they put him out. They put him down, they put him out. Right. And I think that, since those kind of fights, I don't think he's faced a power puncher like those kind of guys. You look at his last fight, there's a fight against Joe Pyfer, who he's fought since then. Petrosky, Barberena, Edmund Shabazian, Rainer de Ritter, and Brad Tavares. I think the only one that has real one-shot knockout power there is Edmund, and he has clear massive holes in his grappling. But so does Michael Oleksiejczuk. So I don't know, but I think I like Oleksiejczuk to finish it in round 1. I do. I think that's where I'm going with this. I think he's just beat people a lot in round 1 before, and I think that Mearshart is susceptible to being finished in round 1 and not if he doesn't get to, weather that storm. And I think Oleksiejczyk's storm is very hard to weather. So I think I am gonna lean Oleksiejczyk round 1 KO, but if not, we know where this is going. Give me a Mearshart sub later on,
Yeah. To me, Oleksiejczyk comes out there like a bat out of hell in the first round, like Pat said, every single time. He's either going to kill you or he's going to be killed. He's going to go out there and try and finish you. And then if it gets into 2 and 3, if he has the cardio to get through the fight, he'll get through the fight. But he's trying to get you out of there quick and early. This is minus 235 for Oleksiejczyk, plus 190 for Gerald Mearshart. I'm going the same direction as Pat. I'm going to go first round knockout by Oleksiejczyk. But like I said, don't be surprised if he gets caught in a scramble like he did against Kevin Holland, or if this fight gets into rounds 2 and 3 and he looks like a completely different fighter after emptying the gas tank in round 1. So this could be an interesting matchup and might not be as clear-cut as we may think, but you're going to have to watch to find out. Striker versus grappler in the middleweight division. Pat, there's another middleweight fight here that I believe just got announced under Oleksiejczyk, and is this the guy from last night? Is that the same dude?
Baisangar Susarkayev?
That just won from the Hamzat?
That is the guy who just had a first round knockout on Dana White Contender Series last night. They had announced that he will be taking on CFFC champ Eric Nolan, who is moving up to middleweight to take the short notice fight on 3 days notice, because Susarkayev called for a fight on the same card as Chimaev, and they gave it to him.
Oh my God, that's awesome. It's kind of like how Hamzat was on Fight Island back in the day, taking 4 fights in 4 weeks. That's incredible.
So, yeah, we just have a guy now. On Tuesday, he just got a first-round knockout, and now he will be fighting again on Saturday. And I will say, I love Eric Nolan. He is the man. Susarkayev will be a massive favorite in this fight. He will be a massive favorite in this fight. Nolan is moving up from welterweight. He's lost a couple times in his career already, and Susarkayev is he has all the hype right now, So Nolan's going to be a massive underdog, and he is going to need to climb a big mountain here if he wants to win this fight.
So CFFC, that's your part of the woods, right? That's one of the regional promotions that you've been covering on a.
Yeah, definitely.
So what can you tell us about Eric Nolan? It says that he has a loss here on it. I can only I only know what ESPN tells me at this point about Eric Nolan. I'm not necessarily the guy keeping on top of the regional scene as much as I am here, the major promotions. But it says Eric Nolan did lose recently, or is 0-1 is what they say. I'm assuming he's not 0-1. You got to go to the Tapology.
No, he's his overall record's 8-3 now, 9-3, 8-3. Yeah.
It's striker, grappler. What kind of style does Eric Nolan
Good
have?
good mix of both, honestly. He was very much favoring his grappling earlier on in his career. Throughout his first couple fights, he was favoring his grappling heavily. And I was actually there for his last loss, his split decision loss against Alonzo Turner. He grappled heavily in that fight. He struck heavily in that fight against a grappler and did lose a split decision that a lot of people thought he won. And I think it flipped some kind of switch in him, because since then he's on a 4-fight winning streak with 3 knockouts and 3 big knockouts. When I tell you, like, flatlining almost knockouts he's had in 2 of those fights. And one of those fights, his last fight, the title winning performance, he won the belt over Blaine Richards, who he had his second career loss to. So he showed clear improvement when you go from losing a guy to submission in round 2 in 2023 to knocking him out cold in round 1 in May of 2025. You're showing clear improvement. So that's something that you always love to see from fighters, it's like me, especially in my opinion. So, I mean, he was CFFC champ, and I think he had done enough to deserve the shot. I think he just signed with Dominance MMA as well. So it was kind of, people thought it might have been close. But actually, funny enough, Eric Nolan is fighting Susurkayev. The other winner from last night, Ty Miller, was the man who handed Eric Nolan his first professional loss.
Wow.
So both of the contract winners from last night will have fought Eric Nolan by the time Saturday night is over. So how crazy of a fact is that? Ty Miller is... he's connected in this just more than actually winning the contract alongside Susurkayev. It's actually pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's some great insight. If me and Eddie were on here tonight, we wouldn't be able to tell people much about Eric Nolan. But Pat's about the best guy we could have had on tonight to talk about this situation. Certainly, he's going to be there in Las Vegas for weeks 2 through 5, right? For the Dana
2 through
White
6.
2 through 6.
Mm-hmm.
Out there for a whole month for the Dana White Contender Series. You guys can catch his content on his social media pages or the Cageside Press YouTube page moving forward on Dana White Contender Series. But this guy coming off Dana White Contender Series last night got a huge knockout, right? This was the only guy that he was interested in. Massive knockout, put a statement on his victory. Unlike the other fights, it was entertaining. What did you think? Quickly, we'll talk a little bit about DWS since we got to briefly touch on that. What did you think about Dana only taking 2 guys and the overall quality of fights in night 1?
I honestly didn't surprise me too much. Taping the first fight, I knew it was a lower level fight. Taping the main event, I knew it was a lower level fight. So I had kind of alluded to that in my breakdowns a little bit, that they were both lower-ish level fights, and I mean, my predictions went 4-1. I feel like I had a good read on the card overall. But I mean, Ty Miller looked great. His boxing looked great. I thought he had a really good performance, and if he was fighting someone that maybe didn't have as much heart as Dimi Drago, Dana would have been just as happy about his win as well. But I mean, Susurkayev is just such an elite prospect. There's just so much to like about him. He was by far, not by far, but he was the best prospect on the show last night. And I mean, even a couple of the guys that didn't get signed, like Radley De Silva, I think they're incredible fighters, but I mean, you're not going to get signed doing that, and he knew well aware that he wasn't going to get signed. He just said that he was trying to pick up the win, which is great. But we've seen in the past guys fighting to prove something and not just win, get signed just because they tried to prove something. Getting the win, it was big for him, but it might have not been the best thing to do in that situation. Luckily, he's a Canadian prospect, which the UFC desperately needs. So I think he'll be brought in at some point. But just overall, I think the card was a bit more boring, but it didn't shock me. I think week 2 is going to over-deliver in terms of finishes. I think we're going to get at least 4 finishes on week 2, my personal opinion. I mean, at least 3, I'd say. Finishes on week 2. I was looking
ahead, and I think it's 6 undefeated fighters next week on week 2.
So you want to talk about big underdogs? I think we're going to have 4 minus 300 or higher favorites on that card tomorrow, next week. So I do think we're going to see some big favorites, and because of that, I think we're going to see some big finishes as well from those favorites.
So there are two more matchups that we're going to get into here briefly for UFC 319. Then we got a little bit more to talk about, a little more extended episode here tonight, fight fans. But Chase Hooper takes on Alexander Hernandez in a lightweight matchup at 155 pounds. Chase Hooper 16-3-1. Alexander Hernandez 16-8. Alexander Hernandez is a guy who was once like Chase Hooper, the up-and-coming prospect in the division, was trying to move his way up, ran into some roadblocks there along his career. Some fights that he probably should have won looking back on it now. But Chase Hooper in this one is going to be significantly taller. He's going to have a huge grappling advantage if this one hits the floor. He's minus 320 according to betting odds makers online. The only thing to me in this one is that Alexander Hernandez is a game competitor, right? And he is somebody who can swat. He has power in his hands. Once he gets you hurt, does he finish it? He doesn't have necessarily that finishing ability that would make him an elite prospect, but he does hurt a lot of guys, and he is competitive even in matchups that he does end up losing. So when I see Chase Hooper, I think Chase Hooper is going to try and put pressure on him like he's done recently in his last couple contests and force the fight to the floor with Hernandez up against the fence, try and shoot in on some of those takedowns, grapple against the cage, use his frame to get the fight to the ground. But if Hernandez can get out of the clinch, not get taken to the ground, I think there is a path to victory for him because I do believe he's going to be the better striker on the feet.
Yeah, so I agree. I think he is the better striker on the feet. And to be fair, when do we really see Hernandez get dominated in the grappling? We don't see it often. He's fought in the UFC for a very long time now. The only guys that were really able to implement a will on him with their grappling were Moicano, and I think that was a while ago, so maybe you can kind of pass on that, but whatever.
Yeah, it's been more strikes that he's had to do.
That's the issue, right? I mean, Damon Jackson was the only other one. It was Moicano and Damon Jackson. Those are the two. But the Damon Jackson fight was fairly recent. So if Damon Jackson took him down 3 times, maybe, if Chase Hooper gets you down 3 times, it's probably not going to be a great night. So I am interested to see how it will go. I actually think I do lean Hooper by decision here. I think I'm just going to keep it fairly basic. I think Hooper is going to get him down in at least 2 of the rounds. I think he'll control him, but I don't know if he'll find the submission. I think Hooper's submission offense is really slick, but I think it's become a bit overrated because of his last 3 fights. And I think, not his last 3, the 3 fights before his last fight against Jim Miller. And I think that against Jim Miller, we saw why his submission offense was a little bit overrated. So I think I actually like Hooper by decision here.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Hooper by decision as well. A lot to what you mentioned. I don't think he's necessarily going to be able to choke out Hernandez, but I do see him maybe controlling this fight up against the cage and maybe in back control or some certain situations on the ground to where he stalls out extended periods of time in the contest. Because I don't think he's going to want to sit there and get into some striking exchange with Alexander Hernandez for 15 minutes, right? And if the fight does hit the ground, I think Alexander, as you mentioned, is good enough to protect himself. I would take, guys, this one is minus 330 or minus 320 for Chase Hooper, a little bit steep. If I was going to bet this fight, I would go to the FanDuel Sportsbook and go to the double champs option and go submission or points to bring that down under the 300 threshold there for your money line. I think that would probably be, I don't think he's finishing out Alexander Hernandez by knockout or TKO, right? So as long as the fight doesn't end by TKO or a draw, you would win as long as Chase Hooper would win. So I'm looking at submission or points for Chase Hooper. If I'm going to make a prediction, I'm going to go to a decision win for him.
Yeah, no, I'd say the same. Honestly, though, I think that maybe, depending on the odds, of course, it would have to be juiced odds. But I think a TKO prop could be interesting. The only issue is he's such a mauling grappler that they're going to include his ground and pound and top control in that. But if we were talking about just a TKO on the feet, if you could bet on that, his striking actually looked pretty good against Slava. So I'd be interested in that angle potentially if he did crack Hernandez's chin. But like I said, I do favor Hernandez overall on the feet. He should be able to dictate more of the pace in general.
So you got what was
Hooper by decision was my prediction. Yes.
All right, so we both have him by decision. We're going to talk about this one last fight here. We got to talk about 2 more. I mean, this is such a good card, so deep.
Yeah.
So many names on it. We got to talk about most of these fights. Edson Barboza, Drakkar Klose. Barboza is somebody who we've seen, right? He's dynamic. He's one of the most electric strikers in UFC history. Spinning wheel kick over Terry Edom. Flying knee knockout over Beneil Dariush and some other people. So I think that Edson Barboza in his career would have destroyed Drakkar Klose 5, 6, 7 years ago. In his prime, this would not have really been a good matchup for Drakkar whatsoever. But at this stage of his career, I'm maybe leaning towards Drakkar Klose in this one as a betting underdog. What do you think, Pat?
I really couldn't tell you. It's such a weird fight to me because I feel like Drakkar Klose just doesn't fight anymore. So I don't know what to think about Drakkar Klose. You know, like not to say he doesn't fight anymore. That's not like a good thing. But I just feel like what we've seen from him lately is not what we've seen from him in the past, and it's like I just don't know how to rate him anymore. So I honestly just want to go with the vet in Barboza just because I'm more comfortable with what we've seen from him in recent times.
You know what you're going to get.
Exactly, and that's the thing is just I'm going to go with the vet. Also, Drakkar Klose moving up to lightweight. I think he was at lightweight for his last fight against Joel Alvarez, but not moving up to lightweight. Sorry, he's been at lightweight. Edson Barboza moving back up to lightweight. That was what I meant. That's an interesting one to me too because Barboza hasn't been at lightweight since 2019. So I really don't know with this fight where it's going to go. Why Barboza's moving back up this late into his career, but. I think I lean Barboza by decision. I really couldn't tell you though. This is one of the fights that I don't have a good read on, and unless I actually taped it, I don't think I would have a good read on it.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know if either of these guys are going to knock each other out. If I do favor someone by knockout, it's probably going to be Barboza, right? I think he catches him with some type of knee or some type of kick, or honestly, I wonder what the low leg kicks of Barboza are going to look like in this one, and if that's going to be a game plan for him.
Great point.
Taking away the movement of Drakkar Klose, but Drakkar Klose to me was 4-1. Other than that loss to Joel Alvarez, I highly rate Joel Alvarez. I think he's very good at lightweight. He's about 6'2" in the weight class. Massive human being for 155 pounds. So that's not necessarily the worst loss in the world for me. I would take Drakkar Klose money line in this one if I was going to bet it. In my prediction, I'm going to take him by decision. I think he's just going to do enough in some moments, maybe control Edson against the cage and do enough on the feet to dictate the decision in his direction. But close fight to discuss here. Another one on the card, though, Pat, is Bryan Battle and Ruziboyev. Now, this one really, to me, is a card starter. This is where the fight card gets rolling and downhill here with this contest. Bryan Battle had that loss to Rinat Fakhretdinov, but since then has looked fantastic. Ruziboyev went down to welterweight, lost to Joaquin Buckley, came back up to middleweight, has looked good since returning to middleweight. Ruziboyev is very big, very strong. 6'5" to 6'3". I don't see Ruziboyev taking this fight to the ground. I see both these guys kind of striking in this contest. So I think I'm going to favor Bryan Battle in this one. I think that he's looked good in his last couple contests. He's a very coordinated athlete. When he was on the Ultimate Fighter against Andre Petroski and these guys like that, I thought he separated himself on that show. That was the first time I got introduced to Bryan Battle. And Ruziboyev is a finisher, right? He goes in there and he stopped, he has 28 finishes in his career of 37 fights, 37 wins, 36 wins, I'm sorry. But I think this is going to be a banger, a great way to start the card here in Chicago in the first couple fights. And I think this is going to be the tone setter for the rest of the card.
Yeah, I completely agree that it will be the tone setter. This is such a weird matchup to me because I don't love Battle moving back up to middleweight. I really don't love it. I mean,
that's why I mentioned the Ultimate Fighter. He was in the middleweight division in the Ultimate Fighter, but he was looking good at welterweight.
It's one of those things because I think he was a middleweight before Tough, and then he just decided to drop.
He was one of these guys that was 300 pounds and got into MMA to lose weight, I believe.
Yeah, 21 years old. Yeah, I actually saw something about that recently, but it's one of these things where he didn't look great in his last fight, and the weight seemed to be a big factor, which is something he can't rely on, I don't think, in this fight. Ruziboyev is bigger, I want to say, overall, even though they both fought at 170. This is such a weird stylistic fight to me because I really could see Ruziboyev potentially getting him out of there early, but my gut just keeps telling me, Battle should be more skilled. Battle has fought really good competition, and he's looked good doing it. His striking's good. Everything's solid about Battle's game. So I think I do want to lean Bryan Battle by decision here, but there's a weird part of me that wants to think that Ruziboyev might pull something out here and really give Battle a bad fight.
I would say this. Ruziboyev, when he's fighting lesser competition, that is one of the worst guys you want to fight because he gets you out of there quickly. He identifies you're not on his level, and he finishes fights, right? He's got 20 submission wins. He's got 13 TKO wins. That's 33 finishes in 36 fights. So what happens to Ruzaboyev, though, when he goes against a guy like Joaquin Buckley, and the path to resistance is greater, where you're not fighting a guy like Dustin Stolfoots, you're not fighting a guy like Aaron McConico, you're not fighting one of these guys that are journeymen necessarily. So I think that Brian Battle, other than Joaquin Buckley, is probably one of the toughest matchups that he's had in the UFC. So I'm going to go with Brian Battle by decision, but like Pat said, if Ruzaboyev goes in there and gets it done and, can identify early that Brian Battle is not necessarily at his same level up here at 185 pounds, he could get the finish as well.
Yeah, and I will say I do think Bruno Ferreira is up there too. I think Bruno Ferreira was a really good win for Ruder Sultan, and I think that's what I keep going back to is I think Ferreira is a good fighter, and I think him just like bonking Ferreira the way he did in his debut, like I think his level of competition besides the Buckley fight is wins wise, his level of competition has only gotten less and less impressive. Because he went from Bruno Ferreira to Cedric Dumas to McConico to Stoltzfus. Maybe Stoltzfus probably fits in a bit higher there, but he went down. He went backwards almost with level of competition. Those
almost seem like the fights you would get coming into the UFC.
Exactly, and his loss was at welterweight on short notice, so you would think that they wouldn't have cared about his middleweight run, and once he went back up, he would have just continued doing what he was doing at middleweight, but no, it's like they almost reset him completely like he was a new fighter in the UFC, which I didn't really fully understand, so I don't like that. But this Battle fight now makes sense because Battle was just ranked at welterweight. But is Nursultan going to be barely ranked at middleweight if he wins? Like, I don't know. Like, what does this fight really do for him?
The winner of this fight might,
he might, but I don't know what this fight does because middleweight's in there's a big log jam in that like 15 to 20 range at middleweight right now. It's very, very crowded, I feel like a lot of those guys are going to have to fight.
Yeah, I think so too. The Joe Pfeiffers, the Bonet, all those guys, they're going to have
Abus, Kopolov, like those guys,
Petrovsky. There's just so many guys that are outside the top 15 or lingering around that might actually be pretty talented individuals, but don't necessarily fight with that, relative activity. But guys, we got to talk about some breaking news here that is it's some of the biggest news in my time covering the sport or watching the sport. CBS will be the new broadcasting partner to the UFC. $7.7 billion deal was announced a couple of days ago by Dana White and Mark Shapiro, CEO over there on CSNBC, came out and announced it. $7.7 billion over 7 years. Mainly the fights will be moving to Paramount Plus. They are going to have some numbered events on CBS Channel 3. Now, listen, during football season, what can you do, right? Because the NFL, the college football on Saturdays, they're gonna view more than the UFC. They're gonna bring in more viewers than the UFC. I do not see the UFC during those months having a whole bunch of cards on CBS on Channel 3. But during maybe necessarily March to June, July, I think that that's kind of where your sweet spot is for the UFC on CBS, and you're going to get some of these big cards pushed up onto that big platform. But this is huge, right? Channel 3, this is as big as the UFC's ever been. It goes from Spike to Fox to ESPN to CBS. It just keeps growing. And one of the numbers that I was looking at in this was that the Los Angeles Lakers just recently sold, Jeannie Buss sold for around $10 billion, 9.8. The UFC just got given $7.7 billion for 7 years, and the Lakers just sold for entire eternity for 10. Think about that. The UFC is growing and growing and growing and growing to the point to where them even being viewed on TV for a short stint of time is worth more than the Los Angeles Lakers, which are one of the most premier franchises in American sports history. So I think that it just shows how our sport continues to grow. And by the time this CBS deal gets done, who knows? Maybe the UFC will have reached the heights of MLB and the NBA and be a real player in the major four sports in America.
I would hope so. That's what we'd love to see, right? That's what we all want to see, I think. So I'd love to see that, definitely. And just to add my 2 cents on it, I mean, I think it's good. I think it adds more people, gives more people the ability to watch. I think the UFC, I know it sounds crazy, but they might generate, like, they might have Paramount generating more from their monthly subscriptions than they were generating on pay-per-view prices before, because I've seen so many people, all the top comments on every post are, well, I was streaming and I was, pirating every event, and now I'm not going to. Now I'm going to pay this for Paramount because it is a reasonable price to ask for UFC events. And I feel like that's, and those are all the most liked, the top comments on every one of these posts revolving it is, yeah, no, we're not going to pirate anymore. There's no reason to. You guys made it affordable into my budget. And that's what the biggest thing was. That was what was needed in this sport. Pay-per-view model was dying. I think it definitely was just definitely falling off, And in terms of fighter pay, I think hopefully it does do more for fighter pay, but I think now is the better time than ever to finally get together and actually make a fighter union. I know we've keep talking about it. I know they've tried multiple times, but now is the time. You just saw the company get $7.7 billion. If you as a collective, as fighters, don't feel like you're getting paid enough, time to unionize. We have an NBA Players Association, we have an NFL Players Association. It's time to do the same in MMA. If you're going to be on a major broadcasting network like CBS, it's time to get a union together and get you guys a higher percentage of the pay. Right now, I think it's only about 15%, give or take, somewhere in that range is what the fighters are getting from the total revenue. If we could get that doubled, imagine that. Doubled.
Yeah. It'd
just
be around
30%.
Where those other ones were. It'd be around where MLB and NBA, they're around 25-30%.
No, I think they're actually around closer to 40 and 50% now. I think they've slowly, gradually gotten there. But for now, if we just got a double and it was only at 30%, that's all we need. That's all the fighters I think would be happy for a while. At least for the next 7-8 years, no one's going to be asking for pay raises anymore. We saw bonuses are going up already. That's great, but bonuses only affect such a small percentage of each card.
If it goes from 50,000 to 100,000,
it affects such a small percentage of each card. If we can get the not the revenue, but the percentage of the fighters doubled, theoretically, everyone's contract should double. If everyone's contract doubles and the minimum for contracts was 24 and 24, not 12 and 12, I think we'd hear a lot less complaining from everyone.
If you had 25
industry.
and 25 and someone could make 50 grand getting a win, nobody could really say anything because they'd still be at 12 and 12.
Exactly. And I think that's where we need to see things go now, but that's obviously on the fighters. That's not on the company. The company isn't going to do that. Why would the UFC ever do that?
We're just talking about Jeff Neal having to work 2 jobs. Why does that even have to happen in this climate? That's something that shouldn't happen. He should be able to pay his coaches to be able to live. And
exactly what
he's been in the top 10 for 5 years.
And that's the thing is Eddie Eddie nailed it on the head though. They shouldn't have to have day jobs. If you're being broadcast on CBS, why are you working a second job if you're a professional athlete? You should be getting paid enough that if you're fighting, and that's the thing too, we have to talk about activity as well, because some guys are inactive, and if you're inactive and you're not fighting, maybe you shouldn't be paid, so I think that you have to be, let's say 25 and 25. If you fight 2 times a year and lose, you're still making a minimum of $50K if you're the lowest paid fighter on the roster. So that's what I think it should be. You should be fighting a minimum of 2 times a year. I know injuries and everything, but 2 times a year should be the minimum in my opinion. And if it is raised double, then people will be getting $50K a minimum a year. And that should be the bare minimum. So I think that it would move the sport in the right direction.
Of all the sports in America, I truly believe that mixed martial arts is the most unorganized. I think that it's just harder for these guys to get together. Listen, when you got guys who fight each other, they might not necessarily be the best friends or relationships. How does George St. Pierre call Nick Diaz and say, well, this is ridiculous. We're not getting paid what we're worth, Nick. And he's not going to give a shit. These guys don't necessarily like each other, but they need to come together to, go towards a bigger goal. And it's just really hard. I feel like they should have done this before the Fox deal and gotten together. That's when Luke Thomas and everybody was calling for it. But now I don't know if it's a little bit too late. $7.7 billion is massive. You'd expect them to get organized and unionized and that sort of thing. But in this current climate, Trump is the president of the United States, very close relationship with Dana White. He's not going to get an Ali Act or some type of act of God to come in for these fighters from Congress, especially when Trump's in office. So for the next 3 to 4 years here, if they don't collectively come together and unionize, I think you're looking at pretty much getting the shit end of the stick here. Is that kind of how you see it?
Yeah, that's exactly how I see it. I really don't know what to add to that because I see it basically the same way.
Yeah. So this is a massive deal for the UFC, massive opportunity for us fight fans to watch every single UFC fight. I forgot to mention that every single UFC fight will be on Paramount Plus. CBS will pick and choose, kind of like ABC did, to which cards they will simulcast as well. The subscription for ESPN Plus the pay-per-view price before was around I think Pat mentioned $1,200, $1,080. Now it's going to be $130 for the entire year. You get to see every single UFC event. That is if Paramount Plus does not up their subscription price coming.
Even if they raise it to $20, I mean, I think everyone's okay with that.
We buy it, yeah.
I think everyone would be okay with that, So, yeah.
I think so too. But moving on down the news here, before we briefly touch on the fight night that happened last week between Anthony Hernandez and Roman Dolidze, the PFL has a card this week. Liz Carmouche versus Jenna Bishop. Godzi Rabadanov is featured on that card against Alfie Davis in the main event. 2 world championships, actually 3 world championships will be on the line. Justin Wenzel will be fighting Alves there as well. What do you think about some of these matchups? Of the 3 world championship events, I think this is probably the one that fight fans are kind of forgetting about when compared to the Dalton Rasta or the Thad Gene cards. But what can you give us a little bit of insight on Alfie Davis and some of these guys?
I don't know. I feel like this is a very interesting card. I feel like the Alfie Davis fight, it feels cut and dry, right? Like, I hate to say it like that, but it does feel a little bit just cut and dry that, Gaji Rabadanov is like a level above everyone else. At least that's what it feels like, So it just, I don't know. Like, I want to say that Alfie is going to give him a run for his money because Alfie is really tricky, Yeah. Alfie's a slick striker. He's really good on the feet and like the spinning elbows. Like, I really like what Alfie's able to do. He really does cause problems. With that said, is it going to be an issue for Rabadanov? I don't think so. I really don't think so. In the co-main, we have Liz Carmouche, Jenna Bishop. That's an awesome matchup. 2 grapplers going against each other. One specializing in submissions, one specializing more in just control, ground and pound. So and I think it's a good point. It's a good fight at this point in both of their careers. Because they are both on the older side for women.
Do you think the winner gets Dakota?
I think it would make sense. I don't know what they're going to do at this point because it seems like they're against doing the obvious thing or the right thing every time at this point. I don't know. But I do think that the winner against Dakota would make a lot of sense. The only problem is, Dakota already beat Jenna Bishop. So I don't know how much that's going to interest people. So I think they'd want Carmouche to win just to give Dakota a new opponent,
Yeah, and it'd be the biggest name on Dakota's. Well, Tyler Santos obviously is big and was in a title opportunity, but it'd be the first world champion that she defeated. Be a big name and a Hall of Famer in Liz Carmouche, who has looked good. And outside that loss to Tyler Santos herself, I do not believe she has lost since leaving the UFC. I believe she is 9-1. So Liz Carmouche is really resurrected her career since leaving the UFC. I think that's going to be an interesting contest. The Godzi Rabadanov matchup that you were talking about, he's full steam ahead. And he's gotten so much better on the feet. When we first saw him when he was going over for Bellator to fight in those Rising fights, the Bellator Rising card, stuff like that, he was predominantly a grappler. And since then, man, his striking has gotten really good. And I think that he's going to be good enough to not get into really any trouble against Alfie Davis. And if the fight hits the ground, I think he's going to dominate. So at 5 rounds, I kind of see him subbing Alfie Davis at some point in that contest. And then we move on to Justin Wenzel and Alves. I don't know much about this matchup. What can you tell the fight fans here?
Alves is going to try to strike with him. He's going to try to knock his head off. He's going to try to sit there and just keep him away with his punches because Wetzel's just going to try to wrestle. The problem is Wetzel's wrestling is weird. I wouldn't say it's a pressure wrestling, but he always gets a fight to the ground and he's always controlling on top. He doesn't finish fights a lot. I really don't think I expect him to finish this one either, but we could see something different. Wetzel had problems with his weight against Kasimov. I'm interested to see if he will make weight. He did make it against Mando, so I think he's got that under wraps now. But we'll see. I think he's fought a very, very elite level of regional competition, Justin Wetzel. I think he's fought a very elite level of regional fighters. But Marcelo Alves, now his last 2 wins are over Jake Hadley and Leandro Higo, who, in my opinion, are above regional fighters. Those guys are a different level. Like, Hadley was in the UFC for a bit. Higo has been in Bellator for years and was a back and forth title challenger in the picture, But I will say, I do think Alves struggles with wrestling, so it will be interesting to see if Wetzel can get him down. I do think I favor Alves overall, though.
All right, fight fans, before we sign off tonight, we did have a UFC Fight Night card from the Apex last weekend. Anthony Fluffy Hernandez submits Roman Dolidze in that main event. Pat, this was kind of a coming out party for Anthony Hernandez, who just picked up a win over Brandon Allen with that unanimous decision victory, comes in here and finishes Roman Dolidze, who has never been finished in his professional career coming into last weekend. So this was a big win for Fluffy. I didn't think there was any way he was going to be able to sub Roman. One of the things to me, I don't know if you saw this, there were 3 fouls in that last 15 seconds in that finishing sequence to where Roman grabbed the fence on the way down twice.
I did see that, yeah.
Herb did F all. then he gets kneed in the head by Hernandez twice while on the ground. No one knows the rules anymore for what's legal and what's not with a grounded opponent. So I think those were illegal shots. Hits Dolidze twice. He looks up at Herb like, what the hell? Are you going to call something here at some point? Looks up to Herb and gets snatched up around the neck by Hernandez. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, but I don't know if anyone really cared because it was obvious where that fight was going.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if Dolidze wasn't getting put out of there, he was just going to get dominated very badly and only suffer a lot of damage in a 5-round decision. So I think that honestly was the best case scenario for Dolidze was Herb messing up, him looking up and just getting put out of there because Dolidze is not young. You know, taking a beating like that is not good at this point in his career. I think anything to save the longevity of his career would have been the best thing to do after round 3 at that point, you know?
Yeah, it was going downhill very fast. And that was in my opinion, it was an unwinnable fight, barring some type of miracle.
Oh, I mean, from what we watched, yeah, it was. And I had Hernandez by decision, but I actually thought Dolidze was going to give him problems in the first 2 rounds. Dolidze gave him problems for like the first 4 minutes, maybe. And that was it. You know, it was like maybe the first 4 minutes. But I thought it would be the first 2 rounds that Dolidze actually gave him some issues, grappled with him, you know, like made it interesting. Nah, man, Anthony Hernandez is a top 5 middleweight. Like I think he is.
He's a tough customer to say the least. Anthony Hernandez picks up one of the biggest wins of his career. Who would you like to see him fight next? I think that Robert Whitaker is out there. I want to see him against a former champion or former title challenger. At this point, Anthony Hernandez, in my opinion, has deserved the next step up in competition in this weight class, just like Ranier de Ridder did with his win over Bo Nickel. The UFC acknowledged that and said, all right, we're going to give you the Rob Whitaker now. We're going to give you a main event. This is going to be on television. It's going to be a big situation. I think that Anthony Hernandez deserves something similar to that as well.
I thought the opposite should have happened, actually. I thought RDR should have got the Dolidze fight, and I thought Hernandez should have got the Whitaker fight. I thought, in my opinion, that's what should have happened, because I do, especially after, I thought before the fight, before the Dolidze fight, and before the RDR fight, that Hernandez, at this point, was probably better than Whitaker. That's what I thought, personally. After both of those fights, I think it's almost definite now. So that's a good fight, but I don't even know if it's necessary. I honestly just want to see Hernandez wait for Baralho to fight Imavov and Khamzat to fight Dricus and see what they want to do with him in that picture. Because he's been active. You know, it's not like he's been inactive.
No, he's been very active.
He's been very active. So he's been active enough to where sit back, take a break, see how the division plays out and how they want to give you. Because in my opinion, like, or just make him fight RDR. Really, just have those 2 fight. You know, it's one of those 2 in my opinion.
That'd be a great matchup.
You sit back and wait because realistically, Baralho Imavov winner should be fighting the winner of Khamzat Dricus, right? So then, what do you do with the losers of those fights? Do the losers of those fights fight and then Fluffy fights the RDR, or do Fluffy and RDR each fight the losers of one of those fights, or does something else happen? Like, we don't know. You know,
do you think it's a sure thing that Sean Strickland and Izzy fight too, because they're big names that are out there in that rankings?
I don't know what's going on with either. I know Strickland's suspended for a bit. We don't know exactly when he'll fight again, but I don't know what's up with Izzy. Honestly, I think Izzy's taking some time off. I think he should. I think Izzy's going to be a case where he comes back in like a year and a half, like after his last fight, and kind of just has a retirement fight, maybe against not an easier opponent, but not a title contending fight. You know what I mean? So I think Izzy might be out of the conversation for now, and I think Strickland. We just have to see what happens with the suspension, because I don't know if it ever fully went through. I think they had a July meeting.
Are they teasing 6 months, or are they going to actually give him a year and a half or something?
Well, they said he was suspended indefinitely at their last meeting, from what I know. So they didn't actually give him a sentencing. They didn't get to Sean Strickland or something at the meeting. So they have to get to him at the next meeting now and decide how long it'll be at the next meeting, which only makes things longer, you know? So I don't know. But if
I
it
would
is,
say
I
this,
don't
you
know.
can only go back in history to see what's happened in the past, to see what's going to happen in the future. So the Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Conor McGregor fight, there was a melee that happened after that fight that I believe Tiger Ulanbekov was involved in, and maybe some other UFC fighters as well. I could be wrong there. How long were they suspended for after that one?
That's a good question, actually.
Because I think that it'd be similar, wouldn't it?
I want to say it'd have to be pretty similar, right? I mean, storming the cage and punching a fighter from the corner, you know?
Yes, same thing happened.
What event was that? UFC 243, or was it, or something? I don't know. But they didn't. There's nothing I can find easily about those guys getting suspended or how long they did for. So I don't know.
Hopefully, the suspension is whatever those guys were suspended for.
If it is 6 months, he'll be suspended the rest of the year because that happened in June.
Yeah.
So he'll be suspended.
Is it like the United States legal system where you get counted for time served?
I think so, but it happened at the end of June. So even if he gets counted for time served, if it's 6 months, it wouldn't be until January he could fight.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so interesting in the middleweight division. We'll see where Fluffy Hernandez goes from this one. A litany of names out there in the rankings that he could pick from, former title challengers and other fighters as well. But speaking of former title challengers, in the co-main event, we had Steve Erceg take on Ode Osborne. This was, I'm going to shoot it straight here, an underwhelming performance, in my opinion, from Steve Erceg. I really had high hopes for him coming into this one. Ode Osborne fought as well as he could fight, man. And honestly, he might have won that contest. Like, did Steve Erceg do enough to squeak out a win in rounds 2 and 3? Probably. He probably did. But that round 2 was close. Obviously, he won round 3. He lost round 1. That's kind of how I had the fight scored. Would I have gone for Steve Erceg? I would have. But a guy who had just fought Pantoja so closely, then gets knocked out by Kai Kara France, this has kind of gone downhill quickly. And I hope that he's not the next guy when we're talking about guys like Darren Till and people who were pushed too fast to a title contention. And now they're sitting here in the back of the queue and they aren't what they once were. You thought Steve Erceg has this massive potential moving forward, but have you ruined his potential at this point, pushing him too early to fight people he wasn't necessary? Well, here, listen, when you go from Matt Schnell to Pantoja to Kai Kara France to these guys, that is a huge step up in competition.
I think they should have stepped them back down after Pantoja. Looking back on it, they should have stepped them right back down after Pantoja.
That was the step down, wasn't it? The Ode Osborne kind of was the step down for Steve.
Yeah, it took 2 more losses after that, though. It took him losing to Moreno and Kai Kara France for them to actually realize that, you know, which is a shame. He shouldn't have had to take 3 losses this year early on in his career. But you're right. I completely agree. That was a disappointing performance from Erceg. I actually expected decision. I expected a safer win from Erceg. I thought because he had lost his last 3, he was going to want to play it safe, kind of just, you know, secure the win no matter what, kind of like Radley De Silva the other night on DWCS. But what surprised me was Ode nearly finishing him multiple times in round 1. That was my issue with it. That rounds 2 and 3 were fine to me. That round 1, like, what the hell, Steve? You're getting clipped and nearly finished by Ode. Like, you're supposed to be on a different level. You know, this is not good. This is not like, yeah, you got the win that you wanted. Hopefully your confidence is back, because we need to see what we saw against Pantoja again. Not what that was, you know?
So he almost got just absolutely ran through in that first round by Ode. He did get ran through in the first round by Kai Kara France. There are people in the past like Cowboy Cerrone who people say historically are not fast starters, you know, and have to get through that first round to get into their game plan and move forward. Do you think he's one of those guys that is kind of a slow starter? He doesn't necessarily get it going in round 1. But didn't he knock out Matt Schnell in round 1 too? That's a little bit less competition, level of competition. But do you think that he's not having the sense of urgency here in the first round?
He knocked out Schnell in round 2. It was the start of round 2. So that's an interesting point. I mean, on the regional scene, he had a lot of round 1 finishes, but they were also against lower levels of competition. You know, decently lower levels of competition. So that is interesting to me. I remember watching his fight with Cody Haddon and Sean Gauchi, and I think one of those first rounds he did struggle a bit, and so maybe he is just a slower starter overall. I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't want to say that for sure, but it's very possible that maybe he just needs to get warmed up a little bit before he fights. But that's fine. You can't be getting dropped and nearly finished by O'Day on short notice like that.
Yeah.
It's not like it was just O'Day either. It was O'Day on such short notice. Like that's not a good look, you know? And you see, like O'Day is super proud of the performance. I completely agree. He should be. But you see how proud O'Day is of that performance because he knows he probably shouldn't have performed as well as he did.
Yeah.
Like looking at it on paper, he shouldn't have performed that well. And he's super proud of that performance because he performed a lot better than I think even he might have expected. To be honest,
yeah, I think so too. Maybe even outperformed his own expectations.
Yeah.
But there are two knockouts that we got to talk about from last weekend before we sign off this week, fight fans. Elijah Smith slammed KO over Kazama in that prelim contest. Rampage Jackson, shades of the Pride contest between him and Ricardo Arona from back in the day, picks him up over the head. Kazama's holding on to a triangle for God knows what reason when he's in the air, then gets slammed. His head goes straight into Kazama's head, knocks the guy out cold. He's out cold for about 7-8 minutes. One of the scarier scenes you'll see. The slam has since brought in not scrutiny, but a discussion between the MMA community whether slams should be legal or not. I kind of wanted your opinion on that, whether they should outlaw the slam, especially with that head-to-head collision that we see more often than not. I don't think that they should, but that was a massive knockout, man, and Elijah Smith really became a household name here to fight fans who are diehards and watching every single week on those prelims.
I think if people think it's that serious, I think it's the head-to-head collision. I don't think the slam is that serious. Slam KOs have been a thing in the UFC forever. I don't care how vicious it was. I'm sorry, Kazama let himself get picked up over Elijah Smith's head. You know, he didn't want to let go of the triangle. You know, he let himself get picked up over Elijah Smith's head. And, like, you know, yeah, you could say he didn't have enough time to react. He could have literally just left his legs drop and just dropped to the floor if he needed to. You know, like he really could. I think he might have.
Yeah.
He could have just dead weighted. Like, you know, there's a lot of things I feel like he could have possibly done at that point, but maybe it was too late. I don't really know. I've never been in that situation before. I'm not going to act like I have been, so can't tell you. But at the same time, I mean, slam KOs should never be outlawed. They're part of the UFC. My issue with it, like you said, would be that head-to-head contact. If there is going to be head-to-head contact on the slam KOs like that, don't be afraid to rule it a no contest then. If that's a problem, you know, if the problem was the head-to-head contact there for people, maybe that's what we look at. We look at if there is that head-to-head contact on a slam KO. We've seen it before. Where was it? Carlos Hernandez versus Dennis Bonner. Best example of it. I just thought about it. They made that fight go to technical decision because Carlos Hernandez's head, I think, tapped Dennis Bonner's as he knocked him out with the slam. It was very obvious that knockout wasn't from the headbutt. It was from the slam. But they still made it go to technical decision. They didn't give Carlos Hernandez the finish win. I think that situation compares very similarly to this one, and I don't know why it would be different, you know? So that's my only thing is I don't know what differs things in that situation, but if anything, maybe a no contest was better in that situation, but I don't think that should have been a no contest. I think it was
I think it was a fair play. Do I like to see the head-to-head collisions? No. It's really hard, right? Because nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to see a guy knocked out for 9 minutes and not get up. You know, or see these type of headbutt situations. But it was an incredible freak of nature situation from Elijah Smith. I mean, what power from the guy to be able to do that, especially when we're talking about Rampage Jackson. Rampage Jackson on fight night's 220 pounds, right?
Yeah.
If he's going to slamming Ricardo Arona, he's a big old boy. Elijah Smith is less than 155 here. So this is somebody who had to generate a lot of force in himself to slam Kazama the way he did. So that was a great performance by Elijah Smith. We'll be looking at his next contest moving forward and be, eager to see him compete again in the UFC cage. But one more knockout that we got to get to before we sign off. Christian Leroy Duncan took care of Eric Anders. Eric Anders is one of these guys who's been floating around the division for a very long time, former college football player at the University of Alabama. Christian Leroy Duncan is as technical of a striker as we have coming over from Europe right now. And he showed it over the course of this last weekend, getting a knockout win over Eric Anders. Were you surprised at all with the knockout victory from Christian Leroy Duncan? And what do you make of his prospects moving up in the division as he continues trying to build wins?
I think CLD looked great. I think that it was the performance he needed, right? He needed that confidence boost. He needed that finish over a guy like Eric Anders, who has only been finished by TKO once in his career before this. He needed that. He really did, because he has not looked the part of what we thought he was since getting to the UFC. Let's not sugarcoat it. He just hasn't looked the part. This was the first fight, maybe not the first fight, but this was like the first time throughout his UFC career I was like, yeah, like, I think CLD is going to do it. And then he did. And I was like, you know what? That's what I wanted to see from him. That's exactly what I needed to see from him.
Mhm.
And I like his odds of maybe potentially going in a little bit of a rhythm now. We have seen him lose to RoboCop already, so maybe he isn't on that level, but I can still see him going through a nice win streak through the middle of that middleweight division. I mean, I think like the 25 to like 40 range is wide open, and I think he could take out a lot of guys in that range depending on the matchup. So I think I like CLD to maybe go on a little bit of a streak depending on some of the matchups he gets, and maybe have this fight be with the confidence he needed to actually show us his true potential in the UFC.
Yeah, I want to see him up against another striker. I know he had that decision loss to Armin Petrosian, and that was a really close contest. But I want to see him fight Edmund Shabazian. What would you think of that matchup?
Edmund Shabazian versus CLD would be a great matchup, honestly. I think that'd be a really interesting fight. I do think I'd favor CLD too, because I don't know if Edmund would KO him early, and if he didn't, I think CLD would break him down as the fight went down. So I like that fight a lot, actually. That's the kind of fight that I would love to see next. But Edmund is another one where he's been on his way up again too. So we'll have to see how they feel about that matchup. Like if they both feel like they're gaining something from it, then I feel like they'd accept it. But I don't know. It's interesting. That's an interesting one. I actually really like that fight.
So if we gave a card a rating, me and Eddie normally give card ratings from the week before. With the Slam KO, with the main event, with everything considered, I'm going to give the Apex card from last weekend a 7.2. I thought that it was fairly good. I thought that the prelims actually overperformed to my expectations. So Jocelyn Edwards, also, who we didn't talk about, got a big finish win herself here last weekend. What would you give the card rating out of 10 if you had to from the fight night last week?
I'd say about a 6.4. I thought it was pretty solid. Like you said, I did think the prelims over-delivered. We had that 3 straight knockout in a row, like run on the prelims, but I thought that the McConico fight, the Fernandez fight, the Walker fight were all disappointing, like pretty disappointing, especially for Walker and Fernandez, who I expected to get big wins in these fights. And then Matsumoto had a really close fight with Miles Johns. That was a pretty good fight, but a little underwhelming. I did have Matsumoto edging it, but I wasn't mad either way. I really thought it was too close. I did think it was too close. Like I wanted to see more from Matsumoto, so that was almost a little disappointing for me too. I knew C-Rod was going to disappoint. I feel like he has only disappointed since going up to 145.
Man, I talked to Eddie about this.
Like
he over anybody I've seen fights to the level of his competition. Like he will fight and beat Raul Rosas and Austin Bashi, and in the same breath lose to Julian Rosa and
Feeling. Yeah,
it's like, how do you do that?
I don't understand C-Rod as a fighter. I don't have a good read on him. I'm not going to act like I do, but I did pick Feely to win the fight. So maybe I am starting to get the read on him.
Maybe you got a better read.
Maybe I'm starting to, because like I've been wrong for C-Rod's like last 4 fights before this. So, and then the Lucindo win, I mean, impressive win, dominated Angela Hill, but not exciting, And like I just feel like there were a lot of there were a couple overperformers and some big wins, but I felt like overall, like I was disappointed more than I was happy with some of these performances, especially Urseg too,
Yeah, I thought so too. I thought Anthony Hernandez was a good bounce back at the end of the night, kind of give us a new prospect to look forward to in that division moving forward. But fight fans, that's what we've got for you this week here on the Combat Connection. We will be back next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central Time, same time. We will bring you any breaking analysis or news and a recap from UFC 319 last weekend. We will also be looking ahead to the UFC PFL in Miami. I will be on site in Miami next week, so we'll be having the show from some type of hotel room next week as well. So if there's any technical difficulties with the Wi-Fi, that's why. Thanks for joining us, fight fans, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us.